the human speech contest. And it's Emma Garcias, Spot Geek, Emma Garcias.
Every year, the world celebrates a few significant days. September 21st is International Day of Peace. March the 8th, the Day of Women. But how many of you know what we celebrate on May the 25th? Not many, huh? Because on that day, the world celebrates the day of Geek Pride. Geek Pride, yeah, you heard right. But what is the pride in being a geek? And what is a geek, anyway? Well then, I am a geek. Fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Governor, the judges. It's been a long time since we identified geeks by the nerdy stereotype from the 80s. These chubby guys dressed in black, wearing glasses, feeding on hamburgers, playing fantasy games, reading comics, and their faces stuck onto a computer screen. Although such geeks still exist, they are an endangered species. Most geeks today hide in plain view, living among us, which is why it's important that you learn how to be aware of and spot them. But how? How can we tell a geek from a non-geek, or as kids call them, a mortal? First, there's a few simple test questions that can reveal a geek in disguise. So for example, how many email addresses do you have? Because for some reason, a geek has at least a dozen of them. But Kai already knew. Another question, how many faces does a dice have? Easy, huh? And yet a geek would hesitate, because dice to play Monopoly have 6 faces, you could imagine. But dice to play Dungeons and Dragons have 20. Now tell me, how many languages do you speak? 2, 3, 4 maybe? Geeks may know up to 15 or 20 different languages. But of these, only a few are actual human languages. The rest are computer languages, which is cool because there are many more computers than humans on Earth. But also some non-human languages, like the Elvish from The Lord of the Rings or the Klingon from Star Trek. And why? Why do geeks bother to learn a language that doesn't even exist? Because they can! The geeks are compulsive collectors of information and knowledge. In fact, the only difference between being a geek and being wise is that most of what a geek knows is completely useless. Do you remember what planet Luke Skywalker lived on? Geeks know these things. What was the ingredient of the potion that Harry Potter used in the 2nd book? What character dies at the end of the 4th season of Sheena the Princess Warrior? Geeks know these things. It was called Artemis, by the way. Because what a geek knows determines the rank in the hierarchy of geek society. Yeah, you heard right. Geek society. Because contrary to popular belief, geeks are very social individuals. You know, they go together to comic book and science fiction conventions. They dress up as robots or wizards to go to the premiere of the latest fantasy movie. And they argue for hours on end, not about the meaning of life, which they already know about, but what was really represented by the island in Lost. Geeks look forward to expanding their knowledge and turning everybody else into geeks. But is this even possible, you may ask? Are geeks born or made? Is it nature or nurture? No one really knows for sure. But one thing we know. Geeks are geeks forever. And yet, there are 2 things that can redeem a geek, bring him back into society, and save their souls. Number 1, money. Geeks are very talented individuals, and eventually they can turn all their useless knowledge into useful skills and make a good living out of it. And so they become engineers or writers, game developers, comic artists, or as I did, all of the above. If they are extremely successful, no one calls them geeks anymore. They call them geniuses. So, for example, this guy here, Bill Gates, a geek who became the richest man in the world. Now the second thing that can save a geek is love. Yeah, my friend, geeks are hopeless romantics. Their fantasy is finding a geek partner, breeding geek children, and populating the earth. There's only one problem, though. There are many more geek males than females. For every single female geek, there's like 300 male geeks. And to each and every one of those, that only female geek is extremely attractive, no matter how ugly she actually is. Because deep in our cold metallic hearts, all that matters is she's one of us. But what if a geek can find neither fortune nor love? What happens then? Then the geek evolves and becomes the ultimate geek nightmare, the evil genius. These are individuals who decide to live apart from society, hidden in their secret laboratories, surrounded by technological devices with a single idea on their minds: plan to take over the world. So now that you know how to spot and save a geek, it's up to you to save this one geek soul and maybe save the world. Guys, give me your money. Girls, give me your phone number and I will give you my love.
This time we have 2 minutes for the judges to finish both the guide and then this.